Hello, this is my final project submission for CS50's Introduction to Cybersecurity. My name's Liam Parker. I'm located in Wales in the UK. edX username is dash underscore dash 8 dash underscore dash. I couldn't find anything that would. I had trouble finding a name, so I thought I made a nice picture with the characters. My GitHub username is Eliam, and today is the 27th of July 2025. So the incident I want to talk about is the British Library ransomware attack, which happened in October. Well, started in October 2023, or happened in October 2023, by the Reseda group. I chose the British Library ransomware attack because it provides a highly relevant and well-documented case study demonstrating the catastrophic real-world impact of cybersecurity failures. This incident directly connects to the course concepts such as the critical importance of multi-factor authentication, devastating consequences of data breaches on privacy, and the challenges of managing legacy systems and incident recovery, all of which are essential for understanding modern cybersecurity threats. Who are the Reseda group? So they are a ransomware as a service operation who have been active since May 2023. I think their name, Reseda, if that's the right way to pronounce it, is a large genus of centipedes, which is where the group takes their name from, and they use the centipede logo as their logo. Not this one. This is a picture I found on Wikipedia. They are financially motivated, so they're basically looking for money using their ransomware. They lease their tools and infrastructure to affiliates, and they share their profits. Known to impact different targets of opportunity, so various different sectors like education, such as the British Library, healthcare, manufacturing, government, information technology. Their modus operandi, they employ a double extortion strategy, so they exfiltrate the data, so stealing sensitive victim data, such as HR files, customer contacts, passports, information, whatever information they can get hold of. They encrypt the systems, deploying ransomware to encrypt all the files and disrupt operations. And they demand a ransom to decrypt the data, and also threaten to publicly leak the stolen data if it's not paid, as is common in ransomware attacks. Obviously, this puts a lot of pressure on the victims of such attacks to pay. Their encryption and evasion techniques, they use strong hybrid encryption scheme, RSA 4096-bit key for encrypting symmetric keys, and the CHARCHAR20 algorithm for the actual file encryption, and rename the files with an extension .reseda. They also do anti-forensics and evasion, trying to cover their tracks by deleting the binaries that they used, deleting any log files, basically cleaning up after themselves, which can cause a lot of damage as well. And they drop a note PDF file named critical breach detected with some plain text with the ransomware binary details that defenders can use for string-based detection. The likely entry point for the British Library attack was a terminal services server used for remote access by internal IT and external partners, and this critical server lacked multi-factor authentication. The attackers likely exploited this either through phishing or some kind of brute force attack. It's not actually completely known because of the damage they did when they cleaned up after themselves. But the absence of MFA would have been what allowed them to log in with just a stolen username and password. Data exfiltration. What did they do? Obviously, they stole personal and sensitive data for ransom. Approximately 600 gigabytes of data, or nearly 500,000 individual records, were stolen. They did this by copying large amounts of data from the network drives from the finance, technology, and HR teams. They also did some keyword scanning where they scanned for the network for specific sensitive keywords like passport or confidential in file names, and exfiltrated the matching files from the corporate and even some staff personal drives. and database hijacking. They forced backup copies of the databases and then exfiltrated the backups that they'd created. So what data was actually impacted? I mentioned the databases. They contained contact details of external users and customers, basically marketing lists. There was more sensitive data, like the customer bank details, were not believed to be compromised because there are some existing PCI DSS controls, which meant that they wouldn't have been stored. The library believes that their electoral roll database, which is highly encrypted, and the digital collection holdings were not compromised. They've got additional security measures in place to protect those. But there was some success in exfiltrating the HR files, which included passport information and customer contact details. And the data was later dumped on the dark web. So I actually mentioned earlier the modus operandi, the anti-forensics, data encryption, infrastructure destruction. The infrastructure destruction was the most damaging part of the attack that happened on the British Library. They actively destroyed servers to stop the recovery and also to cover their tracks. The library couldn't restore from backups because the underlying infrastructure itself was so severely damaged or destroyed, which led to a prolonged and widespread service outage and a massive effort to rebuild or renew the entire IT infrastructure. So there's legacy systems involved that can't be restored or can't be fixed. So the library need to now rebuild, and that's an ongoing effort today. So they haven't fully recovered from this attack yet. So they demanded payment, 20 Bitcoin, which was about £600,000 at the time. The library didn't pay. They said, we're not going to pay. They didn't engage at all with the attackers. Sorry, they didn't say they're not going to pay. They didn't respond at all. And this aligns closely with the UK's National Cybersecurity Centre policy, which is basically says no ransom payments should be made by publicly funded institutions, under the rationale that paying ransoms actually fuels the cyber criminals to incentivize further attacks. Should we pay or not? Anyway, to pay or not to pay. So there is some legislation that the UK government are thinking to bring forward. They've had a public consultation, and it's been highly recommended to make it to actually stop it being possible or to ban public sector bodies and critical national infrastructure from paying any ransoms at all. So cyber criminals would know in advance that there would be no way for those organisations to pay anything out should they get attacked. There's also in that proposal there's a plan to make it mandatory to report to the government if somebody does get this kind of attack, who wouldn't be, so businesses that are not covered would have to report to the government as well, so there's be more visibility and improve the visibility. The attack itself, there's an initial direct loss, they estimated at 1.6 million. As I mentioned, the systems aren't fully restored today, so this ongoing. The recovery efforts, they have viable backups of digital and digitized collections and other infrastructure. They've got cloud-based systems, email, financial, HR, payroll, which were largely unaffected by the attack. But they have a big rebuild and renew program that they're running to try and restore everything. And the lessons learned, essentially, it's highlighted the case, the need for strong authentication, particularly MFA. On privileged accounts, which are high-value targets, and the consequences of underappraising known security risks. So where there's a known risk, not to ignore it and to deal with it, because it was identified before the attack that this system didn't have MFA, and it probably should, but it was believed not to be so vulnerable, and it was a legacy system, so it was hard to implement a fix. So this was ignored, and this has been the consequence. That's my talk. I better stop before I run out of time. So have a nice day. Bye bye.